hope you all completed Article 14 and analyzed the referred case laws. Today we will discuss about Article 15, that is prohibition of discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth. Article 14 is a general clause related to equality and Article 15 specifically deals with intersectional equality. Article 14 is confined to formal equality, whereas Article 15, 16 and 17 are considered to be particular equalities. Because Article 15 bars the discrimination of intersectional equality only on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth or any of them. Article 16 bars discrimination of intersectional equality only to religion, race, caste, descent, sex, residence, place of birth or any of them. Article 17 bars discrimination only on the ground of untouchability. Article 18 bars discrimination only by conferring titles. That's why we call them as particular equality. Article 15 Clause 1. The state shall not discriminate against any citizens on the grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth or any of them. The expression state to be interpreted in the light of Article 12 shall not refers to the mandate upon the state not to discriminate. The word discrimination in Article 15 Clause 1 involves an element of unfavorable bias. Now coming to the expression any citizen, Article 15 Clause 1 applies only to Indian citizens and does not apply to non-citizens. Coming to the interpretation of Article 15 compared to Article 14, scope of Article 15 is narrower than that of Article 14 because to invoke Article 15, the petitioner had to prove that the discrimination is made on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth or any of them. Whereas when you come to Article 14, a petitioner can challenge any sort of discrimination without any limitations. That's why the scope of Article 15 is considered to be narrower than that of Article 14. What is the purpose and objective of incorporating Article 15 Clause 1 when Article 14 already is there to protect the right to equality of the citizens? In India, we are a blend of several elements derived from various sources. There is a unity of spirit in the Indian culture which is remarkably everlasting and enduring feature. It fosters cordial spirit and tolerance. It is important to maintain the diversity with a spirit of unity by generating a meeting point for all members of different religions, races, castes, or the persons who took birth in different places in India. So there is a requirement of a promotion of rational approach to life and society with a national composite and cosmopolitan culture and way of life. So Article 15 Clause 1 promotes the cosmopolitan culture, national composite by eliminating the diversity which is there in the Indian culture and guaranteeing them the protection against any such discrimination on the basis of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth or any of them. Article 14 permits any reasonable classification on the basis of rational criterion, and under Article 15 Clause 1 certain grounds mentioned therein can never form the basis of classification. Now use of the word on grounds only of limits the application of equality guaranteed against intersectional discrimination. The word any of them denotes that the basis of discrimination solely may not be on any one ground but may include two or more grounds mentioned therein. Article 15 Clause 1 lays down that discrimination should not be made only on the grounds mentioned therein. If state discriminates on the grounds mentioned by coupling with other considerations, then Article 15 Clause 1 do not come into application. For example, in terms of the reservation to the SCs and STs or to the backward classes, if the caste is the sole criteria for such discrimination, that should not be permitted. Caste plus poverty, caste plus social backwardness can be a ground for discrimination, then such discrimination will not attract Article 15 Clause 1. Now coming to D.P. Joshi versus Madhya Bharat. In this case, the court held that the discrimination on the basis of place of residence in the matter relating to admission in educational institutions cannot be challenged for violation of Article 15 Clause 1 as residence is not a ground provided therein, unlike Article 16. That's how the domicile-based reservation in education institutions are constitutionally valid. Now coming on to the interpretation of the expression on grounds only of. To understand how Article 15 is narrower than Article 14, it is important to understand the interpretation of the expression on grounds only of. Early Article 15 jurisprudence indicates an interpretation of the phrase on grounds only of as linking the basis of discrimination to grounds, that is, signifying the special sense of causation in discrimination. Unlike other areas of law where causation explains the link between cause and effect, the speciality of discrimination of law is in linking the cause and effect through the device of grounds. For example, to apply Article 15 Clause 1, it is not enough in discrimination law to show that an employer had a policy which led to the dismissal of a pregnant female employee. It must be shown that the dismissal is linked to grounds, in this case that of sex or pregnancy. The phrase on grounds only of has been borrowed from section 298 clause 1 of the Government of India Act 1935. The provision stated that no subject of His Majesty domiciled in India shall on grounds only of religion, place of birth, descent, color or any of them be ineligible for office under the Crown in India, or be prohibited on any such grounds from acquiring, holding or disposing of property or carrying on any occupation, trade, business or profession in British India. The meaning of on grounds only of provided in section 298 subclause 1 came to be considered by the Bombay High Court in Punjab versus Daulat Singh. The case involved a challenge to the validity of Section 5 of the Punjab Alienation of Land Second Amendment Act 1938, which inserted a new provision, that is Section 13A in the Punjab Alienation of Land Act 1900. The impugned provision imposed restrictions on certain agricultural tribes acquiring, holding or disposing of property. The question before the court was whether the restrictions were based on the ground of descent alone. Delivering the majority judgment held that it is not a question of whether the impugned act is based only on one or more of the grounds specified in section 298 clause 1, but whether its operation may result in prohibition only on those grounds. The proper test as to whether there is a contravention of the subsection is to ascertain the reaction of the impugned act on the personal right conferred by the subsection. According to Lord Tinkan, the object and purpose test for discrimination is a failure, hence he rejected the same and laid down that the test of discriminatory result or effect flowing from a prohibition or restriction based on grounds. Basis of discrimination can be single or multiple grounds. Now let us examine Order 25 Rule 1 sub Rule 3 of the CPC to better understand the interpretation of on grounds only of. The provision says, on the application of any defendant in a suit for the payment of money in which the plaintiff is a woman, the court may at any stage of the suit make a like order if it is satisfied that such plaintiff does not possess any sufficient immovable property in India. If we examine the provision for its validity under Article 15 Clause 1, herein it is very clear that if the plaintiff is a woman, the court may at any stage of the suit make an order. The same rule is not applicable when the plaintiff is man. Here the discrimination is on the basis of sex. But the discrimination is not solely on the basis of sex, but it is dependent on the possession of sufficient immovable property by the woman in India. Here in this scenario, as the discrimination is not solely on the basis of sex, but also dependent upon the insufficient immovable property possessed by women in India, the CPC provision cannot be held invalid under Article 15 Clause 1. The reason behind such interpretation is the use of expression only on the grounds of laid down in Article 15 Clause 1. To sum up, here in this provision, along with the gender the proprietorship of the woman over the immovable property in India is also added. So the discrimination is not solely on the ground of sex, but also on the grounds of her proprietorship over the immovable property in India. To invoke Article 15 Clause 1, the grounds, any one of the ground or any two or more of the grounds shall be the sole basis of discrimination. Here, since there is another ground for discrimination other than the grounds mentioned in Article 15 Clause 1, this provision has been declared to be valid against Article 15 Clause 1. Now coming to the further interpretation, what the Article 15 Clause 1 prohibits is discrimination, and discrimination based solely on all or any of the grounds mentioned in the article. The discrimination which is prohibited in Article 15 Clause 1 is only such discrimination as is based solely on the ground that a person belongs to a particular race or caste, or professes a particular religion, or was born at a particular place, or is of a particular sex, or no other ground. Now let us look into the case Rajeshwari Devi versus State of UP. The UP Court of Wards Act 1912 was challenged in this case for violation of Article 15 Clause 1. According to the Act, a male proprietor could be declared incapable of managing property on any of the 5 grounds after giving him notice. A female proprietor, on the contrary, could be declared incapable to manage property on any of the 5 grounds without notice. Here the discrimination is solely on the basis of sex. Hence, the impugned provision was held discriminatory and in violation of Article 15 Clause 1. Now, I think you can understand the difference between the previous case, that is with reference to Order 25 Rule 1 Sub Rule 3 of the CPC, as well as Rajeshwari Devi versus State of UP. In the previous case, previous example, the CPC provision was discriminating the women on the basis of sex as well as on the basis of proprietorship over the immovable property situated in India. Whereas when we come to UP Courts of Wards Act, it is a sole discrimination on the basis of sex. That's why in this case, Article 15 Clause 1 is attracted and in the previous case, Article 15 Clause 1 is not attracted. To conclude, Article 15 Clause 1 can be invoked by a citizen only when he or she is discriminated only on the grounds laid down in the provision or any of them, that is a combination of the grounds mentioned in the provision. Now coming to Navtesh Singh and others versus Union of India. This is a case related to criminalization of section 377 IPC. In this case, the court held that sexual orientation is the private affair of a person and not subject to IPC. Any discrimination on sexual orientation is held to be covered under Article 15 Clause 1 under the ground sex. Hence, if any legislation solely discriminates on the basis of sex, then it will be considered to be in violation of Article 15 Clause 1. That is what is laid down in brief in Navtesh Singh and others versus Union of India. There are other issues which have been dealt, but the relevant issue only has been discussed here. Now coming on to Article 15 Clause 2. No citizen shall, on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth or any of them, be subject to any disability, liability, restriction or condition with regard to A. Access to shops, public restaurants, hotels and places of public entertainment, or B. The use of wells, tanks, bathing ghats, roads and places of public resort maintained wholly or partly out of state funds or dedicated to the use of the general public. This provision has been inserted to address the peculiar community issues involved in the Hindu community in particular and discriminatory practices prevailing in other religious communities in general. Article 15 Clause 2 provides a horizontally applicable constitutional remedy for holding racially or religiously restrictive covenants void. Article 15 Clause 2 can also be read with Article 17 while eradicating untouchability. In general, fundamental rights are guaranteed against state action. What if Mr. A person belonging to Brahmin category community, restricts Mr. B on the ground of race from accessing a public restaurant? whether writ can be filed against Mr. A against such racial discrimination. What if a owner of multiplex restricts Mr. B on the basis of caste from accessing his multiplex, a public place, whether it can be filed against Mr. A against such caste-based discrimination? Here, Mr. A, the owner of multiplex, is an individual. He is not an instrumentality of state. Article 15 clause 2 is a fundamental right which is guaranteed against state actions only but not against individual actions. Then you may have a question that how to give effect to Article 15 clause 1. Unless and until you prove that it is a shop maintained by the state, it is a public restaurant maintained by the government, hotel maintained by the government, place of a public entertainment maintained by the government, you cannot challenge the discrimination provided under Article 15 clause 2. So now let us look into the judicial interpretation. The case Indian Medical Association versus Union of India. It's a case of 2011. This case raised an interesting question whether educational institutions can be treated as shops and can be challenged for violation of rights guaranteed under Article 15 clause 2. Here, when I am referring to educational institutions, I am referring to private educational institutions also. The issue in this case is whether a private non-minority higher educational institution that admitted students only on the basis of their scores in an entrance test violated Article 15 clause 2. According to petitioner, the entrance test was of high quality and it was a desperate attempt of the school to avoid admission to the educationally underprivileged caste. The petitioner further argued that the test was an attempt to restrict students of underprivileged castes from accessing to educational institution. Hence, any restriction to public place on the ground of caste is violation of fundamental right guaranteed under Article 15 clause 2. Now the question is whether the test-based admission had a disparate impact on educationally underprivileged castes. But before entering into the question of establishment of discrimination, first of all, we need to see whether petition is maintainable. If a petition to be maintainable for violation of fundamental rights, first of all, the respondent shall be the state. Now, whether educational institution is a state and fits within Article 15 clause 2. So this debate of state is already discussed by us in the previous classes. That is, when educational institution is found to be performing the public function, because imparting education is a sovereign function, and since the government schools are not able to meet the growing needs of the population, the private educational institutions were permitted to operate in this field of education by the government. Hence, these private educational institutions are performing sovereign function by imparting education through their infrastructure and resources. Hence, automatically these private education institutions fit within Article 12. Now the second question is whether education institutions fit within Article 15 clause 2. To fit under Article 15 clause 2, the educational institution shall be either a shop or public restaurant or hotel or place of public entertainment or anything which is wholly or partly funded by the state or dedicated for the use of general public. The court in this case held that Article 15 clause 2 is applicable because education institutions were covered by the term shops. But the court derived the authority from Dr. Ambedkar's speech in Constituent Assembly debates. According to Dr. Ambedkar, to define the word shop in the most generic term, one can think of is to state that shop is a place where the owner is prepared to offer his service to anybody who is prepared to go there seeking his service. I should like to point out, therefore, that the word shop used here is not used in the limited sense of permitting entry. It is used in the large sense of requiring the services if the term of service are agreed to. So here the interpretation of Dr. Ambedkar's speech says that anything or any place where service is offered and service is taken, that place can come under the ambit of shop. Now, to conclude, Educational institution being a service provider falls under shop. In India, education is never considered as trade, commerce, or business, but rather service oriented institutions. Article 15, Clause 2 extends to private economic market transactions generally and not just the business of education. That is, the schools charge fees for providing services, hence, they are considered as private economic markets, and Article 15, Clause 2 can be operated against them. The court attempted to analyze the danger of construing schools under the head shops with the following question: whether incorporating educational institutions under shops leads to horizontal discrimination under Article 15, Clause 2, attracting transformative constitutionalism. Constitution cannot be static. It has to adopt and accommodate the changing dimensions of the political, economic, social, and other forms of lifestyles of the citizens, and mold the constitution to make it more active and fruitful, but within a caution of not changing the basic principles or basic features. That is called as transformative constitutionalism. So every provision under part 3 is subjected to the doctrine of transformative constitutionalism. If you interpret the provisions of part 3 uh, in accordance with the olden days, then the needs of the evolving society cannot be fulfilled. Hence, there is a requirement of a radical transformation of the interpretation of the provisions laid down under part 3. That's how the horizontal discrimination under Article 15, Clause 2, attracting transformative constitutionalism, has been held to be a requirement to give effect to Article 15, Clause 2. Now coming to the Article 15, Clause 3. Nothing in this article shall prevent the state from making any special provision for women and children. Article 15, Clause 3 is an affirmative action which empowers the state to make any special provision for the upliftment of women and children. Article 15, Clause 3 is a particular equality or a substantive equality doctrine which stands against disadvantage, that is, the hierarchy of men over women. Article 15, Clause 1 states that state shall not discriminate against any citizen on the grounds of sex. But Article 15, Clause 3 empowers state to discriminate on the grounds of sex. This contradiction can be interpreted in the following way, that is, Article 15, Clause 3 is an exception to Article 15, Clause 1. Article 15, Clause 3 is not a fundamental right. It only empowers state to make discriminatory laws for the upliftment of women and children. Hence, no one can go for enforcement of Article 15, Clause 3 as fundamental right by filing writ either under Article 32 or under Article 226. In plethora of cases, the Supreme Court gave an expanded interpretation to Article 15, Clause 3 by stating that Article 15, Clause 3 not only acts as exception upon Article 15, Clause 1, but also upon Article 14 as well as Article 16. So, Article 15, Clause 3 can act over Article 14 as well as over Article 16 also. Under Article 14, women can be a class, and such classification can be considered as fulfilling the reasonable classification doctrine containing intelligible differentia. Further, state can create special privilege to women in matters of employment under Article 16. For example, reservation of posts for women in public employment can be considered as one of such special privilege conferred upon the women. Now let us understand the judicial interpretation of Article 15, Clause 3 by examining the case laws. Article 15, Clause 3 has been considered to be a protective discrimination in the case Dattatreya Motiram More versus State of Bombay, AR 1953, Bombay 311, which was further reaffirmed in Vijay Lakshmi versus Punjab University, AR 2003, SC 3331. So you can understand that 15 Clause 3 has been considered to be a protective discrimination from the day of commencement of the Constitution even as in today. The issue in both the cases was related to the reservation of seats for women in elections. The reservation of seats for women in elections was challenged for being in violation of Article 14, 15 Clause 1 and 16 Clause 2. According to court, Article 15 Clause 3 is a positive discrimination covered under affirmative action. For centuries, women were denied political participation. According to preamble, there shall be equality of opportunity in all spheres of life, that is social, political and economic. The discrimination permitted under Article 15 Clause 3 is a concept under egalitarian formula. That is, first provide privileges for uplifting the underprivileged with an intent to eradicate inequalities in the society. After uplifting, remove discrimination and practice equality for all. Until the eradication of inequalities, the positive discrimination is essential, and Article 15 Clause 3 is one of such positive discrimination. Now coming to the rule which is laid down in this case, while Article 15 Clause 1 would prevent a state from making any discriminatory law on the grounds of sex alone, the state by virtue of Article 15 Clause 3 is permitted, despite Article 15 Clause 1, to make special provision for women, thus clearly carving out a permissible departure from the rigors of Article 15 Clause 1. Now coming to the next case, Shamsher Singh versus State of Punjab. A rule granting special allowance to women principals working in a wing of the Punjab Educational Service was challenged on the ground that their male counterparts were not given the same benefit, although both performed identical duties and were part of same service. The said rule was challenged under Article 16 Clause 2. As I already explained, Article 15 Clause 3 is applicable over Article 16 also. So here the court applied Article 15 Clause 3 and upheld the rule by stating that it is that the said rule is providing for protective discrimination. Now coming on to Raghubans Saudagar Singh versus State of Punjab. The Punjab government made a rule: the women whoever are rendering services in the jails will be ineligible for posting in the men's jails except for the posts of clerks and matrons. That means the women could not be posted as the superintendents of jails. This rule was challenged for violation of Article 15 Clause 1. The government obviously argued that this rule was made for the protection of women under Article 15 Clause 3, hence it is a protective discrimination. Now the contradiction is between 15 Clause 1 and 15 Clause 3. According to the court, the rule was invalid as the same is violative of Article 16 Clause 2 and Article 15 Clause 1. The reason is the discrimination in the name of protection. You are affecting the dignity of the woman. You are narrowing down her employment opportunities. Here, it is the duty of the state to provide protection to the women who have been posted in the superintendent of jails. Instead of fulfilling the duty, state by eliminating the women from such positions has conveniently escaped from its duty by showing that the said rule is made under Article 15 Clause 3 for the protection of women. If the scenario has to be reversed, posting of male superintendents in female jails, the court would have curtailed such rule for Article 15 Clause 3 as safety of women inmates is priority. Because the superintendent is in a dominant position and he can at any point of time exploit the women inmates. Whereas in this case, the woman superintendent is in dominant position, hence there is no possibility of any threat from the male inmates. Now, where the protective discrimination comes into picture, there is no possibility. That's why the court held the rule as invalid, as the same is violative of Article 16 Clause 2 and Article 15 Clause 1. To conclude, Article 15 Clause 3 shall provide a real situation of protective discrimination. If there is any ground which is saying that false or which is creating an impact upon the dignity of the woman, cannot be protected under Article 15 Clause 3. Now coming to the Young Lawyers Association versus State of Kerala. It is one of the recent and important case relating to protective discrimination. In this case, Kerala Hindu Places of Public Worship Rules Act 1965 was challenged for violation of Article 15 Clause 1 and other articles. According to Rule 3 of the impugned rules, a religious denomination can ban entry of women between the age of 10 to 50 years. This restriction is found to be in violation of Article 15, Clause 1 and 15, Clause 2 as well as Article 14. This exclusionary practice based on biological factor for a particular age group of women is argued to be class legislation forbidden under Article 14, sex-based discrimination prohibited under Article 15 Clause 1 and 15 Clause 2. According to petitioners, unless such discrimination is covered under Article 15 Clause 3 in the form of protective discrimination or affirmative action, the impugned rules to be declared for violation of Article 15 and 16. But religious denominations are guaranteed certain fundamental freedoms under Article 25 and 26. And Sabarimala temple is a religious denomination. According to Article 25, there is right to practice, profess and propagate religion. According to Article 26, the religious denominations can establish institutions of their choice and run them according to their choice. And Sabarimala temple is one of such religious denomination based institution. Hence, they have the right to run the institution in accordance their choice, and the rule to exclude the women belonging to the age group between 10 years to 50 years is in accordance to their essential religious practices. That is what has been argued by the Sabarimala temple. Now coming to the interpretation, the rights guaranteed under Article 25 and 26 are limited by grounds public health, public order and morality. If an impugned act falls under the exception of public health, public order and morality, the rights guaranteed under Article 25 and 26 cannot be provided. Whether rights guaranteed to Sabarimala temple under Article 25 and 26 overrides Article 14 and 15. When the rights guaranteed to Sabarimala temple do not fall under public health, public order and morality grounds, then definitely Article 25 and 26 will override Article 14 and 15 if the same is an essential religious practice. If it is not an essential religious practice, then Article 14 and 15 will override Article 25 and 26. Now coming to the issue. Whether the exclusionary practice, which is based upon a biological factor exclusive to the female gender, amounts to discrimination and thereby violates the very core of Article 14, 15 and 17 and not protected by morality as used in Articles 25 and 26 of the Constitution. I already explained just now the relationship between Article 14, 15 and Article 25 and 26. I think that explanation is sufficient to deal with this issue. Now let us move on to the other issue, whether Rule 3 of the Kerala Hindu Places of Public Worship Authorization of Entry Rules permits religious denomination to ban entry of women between the age of 10 to 50 years, and if so, would it not play afoul of Article 14 and Article 15 Clause 3 of the Constitution by restricting entry of women on the grounds of sex? Doctrine of constitutional morality is dependent upon the constitutional values. What doctrine of constitutional morality says? It says that the judicial interpretation or constitutional interpretation shall be to uplift the constitutional values. Here the principle of dignity laid down in the preamble is one of such constitutional value. So if the law providing for protective discrimination under Article 15 Clause 3 is the intent of the law, which is providing for protective discrimination under Article 15 Clause 3 is laid down for the purpose of promoting the dignity of the woman or promoting the empowerment of the woman, then it is adhering to the constitutional values laid down under the preamble or in the basic structure. Such laws can sustain under Article 15 Clause 3. That is the test which is laid down in this particular case. To conclude, the Sabarimala case, the restriction on the woman to enter into the Sabarimala temple is for the purpose of protecting the health of the woman. Then Article 25 and 26 will come to the rescue of Sabarimala. If it is not covered under the health and you want to seek protection under 15 Clause 3, you should prove that it is for the dignity of the woman are for the empowerment of the woman. If it is not protected under Article 15 Clause 3, automatically the said provision will violate Article 15 Clause 1. That is what is the rule laid down in Sabarimalai case. Now coming to the Yusuf Abdul Aziz versus State of Maharashtra. It is the first case relating to Section 497, that is adultery, which has been subsequently overridden in Joseph Shine versus Union of India. Here in this case, when Section 497 was challenged for violation of Article 15 Clause 1, the court held that the exemption of women from Section 497 is to protect their dignity and is supported under Article 15 Clause 3. Now coming to the Joseph Shine versus Union of India. In this case, the court held that Section 497 of IPC, though initially was legislated to protect the dignity of women, but now it is becoming a prominent example for the weakness of the woman in a given patriarchal or orthodox society, affecting their dignity and empowerment. Now let us understand the facts of the case, then I will further explain the case. The facts of the case is already dealt while dealing with Article 14, but again, if you read Section 497, it says that women cannot be prosecuted for adultery. Section 497 bars women to be prosecuted for adultery. Now coming to the important points dealt under this case. Article 15 Clause 3, when read with the other articles in Part 3, serves as a powerful remedy against the discrimination and prejudice faced by women for centuries. Article 15 Clause 3 as an enabling provision is intended to bring out substantive equality in the fullest sense. Dignity and autonomy are crucial to substantive equality. Article 15 Clause 3 does not protect a statutory provision that entrenches patriarchal notions in the garb of protecting women. Article 15 Clause 3 is an enabling provision which permits the state to frame beneficial legislation in favor of women and children to protect and uplift this class of citizens. A true and affirmative action is to uplift women and empower them in socio-economic spheres. A legislation which takes away the rights of women to prosecute cannot be termed as beneficial legislation. Now, Article 15 Clause 3 cannot operate as a cover for exemption from an offence having penal provision. That's how, in this case, the doctrine of transformative constitutionalism was applied, the doctrine of constitutional morality was applied, and then held that the legislation which is operating as a protection to the woman from an offence having penal consequences do not contribute in promoting the dignity of the woman or empowering the woman. Hence, such legislations cannot seek protection under Article 15 Clause 3. Now coming on to the some other landmark cases, Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan. We know very well this is a judicial legislation issued by the court to protect the women against the sexual harassment in the workplace. In this case, the court provided the guidelines to protect women workers from sexual harassment, where Article 14 and 19 were found violative. So that is one of the classic example rule laid down under Article 15 Clause 3, because it is to protect the dignity of the woman at the workplace. Now coming to the Apparel Export Promotion Council versus A.K. Chopra. Here, finding distinction between attempt to molest and completed act is found to be erroneous by the court in the context of dismissal of employee of sexual harassment. So this distinction between attempt to molest and completed act is against the dignity of the woman. So such distinction is in direct violation of Article 15 Clause 1. So anything which is affecting the dignity of the woman and discriminating the woman solely on the basis of sex is found to be violative of Article 15 Clause 1. Now coming to the Muhammad Ahmad Khan versus Shah Banu. Divorced Muslim women's right to maintenance from former husbands ceases with expiration of stipulated payment period if possessed of independent means. Otherwise, divorce entitled to continuing maintenance from her husband under CRPC. So this is a legislation which is again provided to protect the divorced Muslim women from the arbitrary exercise of personal law by the husband in terms of granting her the maintenance. The parliament laid down the Muslim Women Protection of Rights and Divorce Act 1986 to undo Muhammad Ahmad Khan versus Shabano judgment. So in Daniel Latifi versus Union of India, that said Muslim Women Protection of Rights and Divorce Act 1986 was challenged, but the court held that the impugned legislation is not discriminatory for the purpose of Article 14 because they considered the divorced Muslim woman as a class. And coming to the government of AP versus PB Vijay Kumar, state government fixed quota for appointment of women in government services. Further, the preference would be given to women to the extent of 30% of the seats post was held valid with reference to Article 15 Clause 3. I already explained that Article 15 Clause 3 is applicable both on Article 15 as well as Article 16. Article 15 Clause 3 is designed to create an egalitarian society, hence the said state government's quota for women was held valid. Now Air India versus Nargesh Mirza. This is a case where an air hostess working with Air India challenged the discriminatory Air India employees service rules, which says that air hostess had to retire and attaining the age of 35 years, extendable at the discretion of MD to 45 years. Air hostess on marriage, if took place within 4 years of service, had to retire, or the air hostess had to retire upon first pregnancy. These service regulations were challenged by Nargesh Mirza for violation of Article 14 as well as Article 15 Clause 1. The court found the said provision as violative and arbitrary under Article 14 and 15 Clause 1 because the discrimination is solely on the basis of sex. Now coming to the National Legal Services Authority versus Union of India, transgender community identity and protection related case. The facts of this case are very simple. The transgenders got identity and protection because there is no legislation till this case to protect, to identify the transgender community or to provide protection to the transgender community. This lack of legislative action in providing identity and protection of transgenders at public places was questioned. The court inquired into the Articles 15 and 16. According to court, transgenders have been denied right under Article 15 Clause 2, Article 15 Clause 4 and also under Article 16 Clause 2 and 16 Clause 4. Transgenders are part of society and they should be identified as like men and women. Article 15 Clause 2, Clause 4 and Article 16 Clause 2 and Clause 4 read with the directive principles of state policy and other international instruments call for social equality, which the transgenders could realize only if facilities and opportunities are extended to them to live with dignity. So here the state can make protective legislation under Article 15 Clause 3 to promote the dignity of the transgenders. So the court here held that the transgender communities should be directed the state to make laws for protecting the transgender community's identity and dignity. Now coming to the Vasanta R versus Union of India, a case of 2001. In this case, Section 66(1)(b) and Section 66(2) of the Factories Act 1948 was challenged for being arbitrary, unconstitutional and violative of Article 14, 15 and 19, 1G. According to the impugned sections, the women employees are unable to carry on her chosen employment between 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. Obviously, the state government argued that the said provisions were made for the safety of the women and they shall be protected under Article 15 Clause 3 because it is providing a protective discrimination. Now coming to the judgment, the court held that the impugned legislation is not supporting women rather cutting their employment opportunities. So protective discrimination laid down under Article 15 Clause 3 if curtails the empowerment of the woman or affects the dignity of the woman, though such legislation is a protective discrimination, cannot withstand under Article 15 Clause 3. So employment generation or promotion is one of the integral objective of Article 15 Clause 3. Since the impugned provision is going against such objective, they were held to be invalid. Thank you.